Annyeong Hasanika. This is Sonu Trivedi, Director of the Swami Vivekanand Cultural Center at the Embassy of India in Seoul, with you all today at the 6th session of the workshop on Facets of India Republic of Korea Partnership, organized by the Embassy of India in association with various Indian and Korean institutions. Beginning from day one, we've had some very interesting sessions by host of globally renowned experts joining from India and Republic of Korea, who shared their views on themes related to foreign policy, economic, social, and cultural issues, along with emerging areas like renewable energy, artificial intelligence policies in India and Republic of Korea. And today, we are amidst you to discuss about startups, unicorns, and decacorns, recent trends, challenges, and opportunities, and how they are influencing the future of businesses in both the countries. To discuss this very topical theme, we have with us today a very distinguished panel, best and brightest minds from India and Republic of Korea amidst us in this panel. Mr. Hyun-Dong Cho, who is the head of UNIDO ITPO, joining from Republic of Korea. Mr. Amir Anchal, Chief of Group Strategy and Corporate Development, Ola Cabs. Mr. Colleen Chang, who is the CEO of Parpeak Corporation. Mr. Shashank Kumar, co-founder of Razorpay, and Mr. Pankaj Agarwal, CEO of Taghai, who will be moderating this very important session, along with the presence of Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Republic of Korea. We are also extremely privileged to have partnered with the Internet and Mobile Association of India and the UNIDO ITPO Korea for organizing this important session. Friends, before we begin the session formally, let me call upon Ambassador of India, Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, for her remarks.
Thank you so much, Sonu. And it is such a pleasure to see so many good friends on screen today. I think the two friends from who are dialing in from India, I have not had the pleasure of either meeting you or speaking to you online in the past, but I'm sure we will correct that going forward. But Mr. Cho, thank you so much for joining us. Colin, thank you so much for joining us. Pankaj, thank you so much for agreeing to moderate this session. It's really a pleasure to leave this in your safe hands. I'll just keep myself really, really brief because I think this is an opportunity for us to hear from all of you who are actually practitioners rather than what we from the embassy see it. But I have been seeing over the past several months, in fact, that the possibility for building up a startup cooperation as a very, very intrinsic part of our special strategic partnership is a very strong one, and the embassy has been trying to work closely with many Korean as well as Indian organizations in order to connect the startups, to connect the investors, and to connect the user community. So, to try and build awareness and create the openings. And that is what we do best, making the openings so that people can communicate with each other. And I think that there is a lot of, certainly there is more understanding now than there was a few months ago on what it is that India offers to Korean startups. And I think equally there is a greater intimacy about the Korean market opportunities and what we can get from Korea amongst the Indian startups. And this is a conversation that we will try to keep going in the months to come. I think there is no need for me to dwell upon the strength of the Indian startup ecosystem. It is, we are already, I think, the second or the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And our unicorns, our startups have evolved into unicorns and are rapidly marching towards the Decacorn status. And I'm very glad that we have in this room people who have launched companies which are in a way leveraging that India-Korea connect and the strengths that we both bring to the table. So with that, I will stop, and I will only say that I am as excited about this session as I'm sure all the other participants are. I think there would be some very good ideas that emerge, and at the embassy, we'll be looking forward to taking those ideas forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks and initiating this discussion. Without much ado, may I now request Mr. Pankaj Agarwal to preside over the session and carry forward the discussions. Mr. Agarwal, floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Ambassador Madam, for saying those wonderful words. It's very encouraging. Every time I meet you and your team, it's so much inspiring and motivating. And looking forward to this great panel today. So, ma'am, and the team here, the entire audience here, I think that today's panel will really set the stage to provide valuable insights to all the audience here and help unleash new business insights that we can use to unlock value. I am Pankaj Agarwal. I have been in Korea since the last 17 years. I worked at Samsung Electronics for around 10 years, did my master's in Korea as well. I did my MBA at Harvard Business School. And since the last 4.5 years, I'm running a startup in Korea around education sector. Our mission is to simplify assessments and make public schools in India smart to begin with, and then go globally. Today, we have a wonderful set of panelists. I would introduce them, but at the outset, I would say that we have a mix of Korean and Indian entrepreneurs and panelists here. So let me say that we have, let me just introduce them briefly here. But before I go to the introductions, a few logistics here. We will have this session for 90 minutes. So if the audience has any questions, you can post them on the chat box. We'll take them up towards the end of the session. Also, we have an interpretation facility here. So on the Zoom window, at the bottom, you would see an icon for interpretation. You can click on that. If you're comfortable with English, you can go with English. Otherwise, you can go with Korean as well. So on that note, I'll just move to the introduction. So welcome Mr. Hyungdo Cho, Mr. Amir Anchal, Mr. Shashank Kumar, and Mr. Colleen Chang to the panel. A brief introduction and all of the members, and you can say hello when I introduce you. So first of all, we have Mr. Hyungdo Cho from UNIDO Korea. Sir, Mr. Cho has been a former Deputy Minister for Planning and Coordination at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea, with more than 30 years of experience as a career diplomat. In fact, Mr. Cho was dispatched to India as the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of the Republic of Korea, where he was responsible for strengthening relationship between India and Korea. Mr. Cho has immense experience and expertise in broad facets of global affairs, as well as supporting startups' overseas expansion. I look forward to meeting you in person later on, Mr. Cho, but today it's good to have you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. So it's my pleasure and honor. So you remind me of my experience in India. It was a long 3 years between 2005 and 2007. It's an unforgettable experience for me. So that is especially pleasure and honor for me to join today's session as the final speaker of the session. Thank you.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much for saying that. Next up is Mr. Amir Anchal, who leads strategy, business development, and corporate finance for the Ola Group, and is responsible for shaping and taking forward the company's strategic vision. As we all know, or most of us know here, Ola is India's largest mobility platform. I'm a frequent Ola user as well. And it's also kind of going to be the world's largest ride-hailing company. Ola has revolutionized the way urban mobility has transformed by making it available on demand for over 1 billion people across 3 continents. And prior to Ola, Mr. Anchal was with Airtel and Bharti Group and brings to the table around 18 years of experience in business development and M&A. Mr. Anchal, can we have you here, and you can just say hello to the team?
Pankaj, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Apologies. Somehow I got entered as attendee and was not able to speak before. Apologies for this. So thanks Pankaj for that introduction. I would like to briefly introduce both Ola and Ola Electric. So as a group, we are in 2 different spaces. One is the consumer internet space, where we have ride hailing, in which we are the market leader in India, and also present internationally in UK as well as ANZ, Australia, New Zealand. Apart from ride hailing, we are in other as a super app, other consumer services as well. So one of them is the auto retail part of it, where whether it is a new vehicle or used vehicle, we actually facilitate that on our platform. And thirdly, we are also there on financial services as a part of the overall platform, where we have products on both the lending as well as insurance side of things. On the Ola Electric side, we are in urban mobility. We come from very strong domain and knowledge of urban mobility. So just to clarify what urban mobility is, it is the typical use case that all of us as city dwellers actually use. So your two-wheelers, your small cars, hatchbacks per se. And if you look at electric vehicles or electric vehicle companies, most of them, like if you see Tesla, XPeng, they focus on the higher segment of the overall vehicle electrification. So whether it is SUVs, trucks, large sedans, our focus is urban mobility, which is where most of the vehicles actually lie, and therefore we are starting off with a two-wheeler to start with. India, as you know, is the largest two-wheeler market in this segment per se. So in the coming years, we will be launching both the ride-hailing as well as four-wheeler categories.
Awesome. I saw that Ola Electric received amazing response in their pre-orders.
Yes, I think Pankaj, the way to look at it is that this segment of two-wheeler and four-wheeler, which is the largest segment of vehicles which are present globally, the adoption of EV will be much more faster compared to the higher end segment, and that is what we are attempting.
Great. We'll talk more about it in the sort of session after this introduction is over. Next up in the panel is Mr. Shashank Kumar. Shashank is the co-founder of Razorpay. Shashank, I envy you. You're so young and you're leading a unicorn company now. It's the country's first payment gateway for startups and small businesses. Mr. Kumar, Shashank Kumar, is an IIT Roorkee alumnus, and he has been instrumental in orchestrating this product, which is now a full stack coverage with full stack payments solution now. And Razorpay has revolutionized online payments space by providing clean, developer-friendly APIs and hassle-free integration. Shashank, good to have you on the team here.
Thanks a lot, Pankaj. Thanks for the invite. Really glad to be here.
Yep, and look forward to hear your insights and your stories on how you made this happen. Great. Thanks, Shashank. Next up is Mr. Colleen Chang. Colleen is the founder and CEO at PowerKick Corporation in Korea. PowerKick Corporation offers power bank rental services. We all run out of our batteries every now and then, and PowerKick solves that problem by providing batteries as a service. And the mission is to offer the most accessible and affordable solution to those who need to charge their smartphones on the go. Mr. Colleen is a graduate from Emory University in Political Science and International Relations, and he has experience of working in different industries in Korea, China, and the US. Colleen, great to have you here as a panelist.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to speaking later in our panel. Is there anything more? Just briefly.
No. Great. I think we'll ask questions in the next sort of question, and we'll have questions for you, specific to you. But really good to have you. I've talked to you earlier as well, and you are one of the inspiring entrepreneurs that I know of.
Thank you so much. Too kind.
Great. In fact, I have a question for you. Like, you work in Korea, as an entrepreneur, and you have developers from India, right? You have hired your CTO. Your CTO is an Indian, and you have a few developers working in India. We all know how difficult it is to get good talent, right? I was meeting somebody the other day, and I asked him, "Hey, give me an Android developer," and he said, "Don't ask me for diamonds. I don't have them." It's so difficult to get talent here in Korea. So I was curious to know how your experience has been in terms of hiring and retaining the Indian talent, and if you can share some tips for any Korean startups here looking to hire dev talent from India.
I think, first of all, if you want to outsource your talent or look for talent overseas, you're going to have the mindset that there will be challenges. There are advantages to hiring talent overseas. There are also definitely a lot of benefits. For me, I was lucky enough to be introduced to our CTO. He had some experience working in Korea, and it was really easy for us to kind of bond because we're in a very similar age. He understood the vision that we're trying to build, and it was a good opportunity for him to showcase his own networks back in India and give his friends and his connections an opportunity to try a new project in Korea. So it really was just having the open-mindedness to really work globally. Just to be honest, our software development is nothing that's special. It's really just very basic. It's really just tracking one's location and tracking in another when they move. So the technology was already accessible. Now we just need to build a team that was able to execute the project. And for me, just personally, it was better for me to just find talent overseas. Just as a startup, finances are limited. However, I prefer to have a global team because I do want to take our service outside of Korea into the Southeast Asia. So I thought preparing for that is probably the first step, hiring overseas in India. Go on and explain to our team. Our team is about 6 people. All of them are based in New Delhi. We have a back-end and front-end admin and a designer. They've been with us for about 2 years now. Some work on us on an hourly basis. Others, more than half of them are in a full-time. And I think from hearing from them, they like the idea of finding jobs outside of just India. Obviously, I would like to expand our team. That's kind of what my goal is for the next year, is expanding our software team, because we do have plans to expand our services from just a simple power bank rental service. Our users are growing every month, despite the corona restrictions. We do see that there's a demand for our service. Now it's making sure that our software team can really create a server that's able to fulfill those users.
Well, that's great, Colin. I was cut off from the panels for a moment because of the internet connectivity here. But good to know your story, Colin. And I have one more question, like how difficult it is to sort of communicate with the Indian developer talent, and what is your plan like, in terms of hiring Korean talent?
We do have one Korean designer in Korea. We realized that since most of our consumers are Korean speaking, we do have to translate the app. We do have to translate any marketing and designs on the app. So we do like to have one on board. However, doing the work, executing some of our tasks, it's not really a Korean, it's not restricted to just Korean language. So that's why it's actually, I think it's more efficient to find talent overseas.
Awesome.
What was your question?
And do you plan to hire more Korean talent versus Indian talent?
I do want to hire, preferably I like to hire the Indian workforce, because I think it's definitely a larger population in Korea. In Korea, it's very limited. I think to find talent that want to join a startup, they tend to join the bigger companies, which I totally understand that. So it's easy for me to find talent and the more willingness to find applications from the Indian side.
Okay.
So that's from my experience. It's really from my experience.
No, that's great. My next question is for Mr. Anchal. So Ola is on its way to becoming a Decacorn, very soon, and it has already expanded globally to Australia, to UK, and so on. Do you have any plans to enter Korea, Amit?
No, thanks for that, Pankaj. Thanks. No, so I think we have a strong relationship as far as Korea is concerned in both our businesses. So even if you look at Ola, Hyundai Kia is a very strong shareholder and a very strong partnership that we have. And along with them, we have at various point of time looked at things which we can do together. So at this point of time, right now we do not have anything specific as far as Korean market is concerned. But our relationship with Hyundai Kia on the ride-hailing side as well as on the electric side is very strong.
No, great. I heard that Ola Electric is also looking at Korean companies for the batteries, because Korean battery technology is really awesome. And I'm just curious to know more about what opportunities lie for Korean businesses planning to enter India.
Sure. No, that's a good question, Pankaj. So One, obviously not only India, but the whole world looks at Korea as far as the cell manufacturing and procurement is concerned. We have obviously been engaging with Korean companies as far as our cell procurement is concerned. But over the last few months, we have also been engaging very deeply with them because Indian government, if you actually look at it, has come up with very progressive policies as far as the advanced cell chemistry and technology and manufacturing in India is concerned. So that has clearly attracted attention of people across the globe, and we are working very closely with the two Korean giants on the cell manufacturing side to see if they can in the next few months or year or so collaborate and partner in manufacturing the cell in India because of the recent PLI policy announcements.
So you think that the PLI schemes that India has launched recently will really boost a lot of Korean companies' motivation to consider India as a destination for manufacturing and all those services?
So that is a catalyst, Pankaj, but the real part is the fact that India, because of the two-wheeler EV propagation as well as small cars and other stuff which is getting into the EV mode, will require a lot of cell in the coming years. And so therefore, as a market itself, it's a very attractive market that any cell manufacturer will look at it. So government policy, which acts as a catalyst in accelerating this whole manufacturing, will go along.
So if in the audience we have people who are looking at this as an opportunity, where can they find more information?
They can obviously reach out to Ola Electric and us at any point of time. But we ourselves are also kind of reaching out through the embassy and other people who we know. But happy to have those discussions at any point of time.
No, great. Thanks, Amit, for that. Moving on to fintech now. So Shashank, fintech has been one of the most thriving sectors in India, and Korea is also a leading market in fintech. We have payment solutions which are so innovative in Korea. I was just curious to know if you have ideas or opinions on how some products could be of interest to both India and Korea together, and if you're looking at any partnership possibilities, be it on technology side or business side, with Korea and India.
Sure. I think India as a market, obviously, fintech is exploding here, right? And we are seeing a lot of new use cases on fintech coming up every day. As per my knowledge, right, I think Korea has a very mature fintech ecosystem and financial ecosystem that is there, right? And a very well-served population across a variety of use cases, right? There's a lot of scope for collaboration across the payment systems in the two countries, in terms of how we can allow UPI acceptance or RuPay acceptance in Korea, and also allow the Korean payment systems acceptance in India to help the tourists, across the two countries that is there. Also, along with that, even from a Korea perspective, the capital that Korea has is pretty significant, and India has a lot of investment opportunities. We have seen some investments from Korea happening in India, but with better policies and better collaboration, I think we can, kind of accelerate that, right? The Korean companies have significant presence in India in terms of let's say Samsung and many other such companies that are there, right? I kind of see that there's a lot of scope for partnership between financial institutions in Korea and the fintech companies in India, which I don't think we have really exploited that or really taken that up, right? For example, in electronics, the kind of partnerships that we have seen has really benefited both the countries significantly, right? So along similar lines, I think there's a lot of scope for partnership there. I don't think we have really scratched the surface there, and it's a good topic to explore. It's a good topic to play on and see what all possibilities exist in both the ecosystems.
Great. Talking about possibilities, I'm just curious to know more about the upcoming trends in fintech. There are companies which have been formed 3 years ago and they become unicorns in the fintech space, right? So really curious to know, talking about crypto, talking about fintech in general. What do you think about, what are some of the trends that you're looking at? Trends in general globally and trends specific to India?
Sure. I think globally as well, we are seeing a variety of use cases on fintech coming up, and internet companies and financial companies shifting to digitization and really promoting them, among various companies and the masses that are there, right? And across the world, we are seeing the trend of new age banking, which is especially called neo-banking, picking up in a significant way, right? And it's bringing the banking system into mobile first, cloud first world, and giving the kind of experiences, which is very highly personalized, very much driven by artificial intelligence or machine learning, and giving the kind of experience to businesses or to individuals, which is what you would associate, let's say, with something like Google or Facebook and the likes that is there, right? So that personalization of banking and and how fintech can really help with the data that is there and giving them next level insights. That's good. That's a major trend across the globe, right? And similarly, so in Korea also, I think the regulator has set up a sandbox and looking at experimenting with open banking as a concept. Even in Southeast Asia, we have seen in Singapore and in Malaysia, regulators opening up the regulatory ecosystem and allowing more players to come in, right? In India, we're hoping over time, the central government is kind of working on various kind of sandboxes and seeing how new age digital banking can be supported well as an ecosystem that is there, right? And how we can enable the sector and the entrepreneurs and the businesses coming up to serve the population in the country, right? There's a huge unbanked population, and there's a lot of scope for innovation there. And we need the right regulatory environment, right? And there's a lot of learnings that you can drive from across the globe, and also some of the things that are happening in Korea, and really kind of apply here at home and give a push from a fintech perspective.
Awesome. There are fintech companies in Korea that want to enter Indian market. What do you suggest to them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the Indian market is very kind of growing well, right? And when you have such a high growth market and such a huge population which is kind of underserved, it makes for a perfect moment for a lot of companies to see what you can do there, right? And I think directly entering the country is something is kind of a bit tough, and many MNCs and many companies abroad have found it really difficult to penetrate the market. I think the right way to go forward on that front is to find the right partners, right? Who can do the last mile delivery, but who can leverage on the expertise and the balance sheet and the tech prowess of the incumbents of the Korean companies that are there, and see how they can really localize it for the Indian context and take it to the market and to the customers that are there.
So it's more about I agree with you, Shashank, on that. I think it's all about partnerships. We need to talk more, and it takes time to build trust, right? We have to have that dialogue on. But with the sort of COVID travel restrictions, it's not so easy to travel both sides, and meet people. And I think at some point in time, that will all be fine. So we hope that we can really create opportunities for meetings face to face and really discuss about collaboration opportunities. Great. My next question is to our next panelist, Mr. Cho. Mr. Cho, you are a legend when it comes to startups, when it comes to policies in the startup ecosystem. I would like to hear from you about the overall ecosystem in Korea for startups. And I'm also a startup guy from Korea, so also very relevant to me. I know Korea has good processes in place to support startups, and I'm one of the beneficiaries of those processes. I would like to understand what roles different players in the Korean ecosystem play in growing the Korean startup space.
Well, thank you for asking for that very important question. Just for your convenience, I prepared some PPT.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right.
We can see the PPT.
Yeah. Okay. So over the past decade, there has been a shift in Korean industry. In the past, especially from 1960s to 1980s, the Korean government as well as its society focused on building factories and establishing manufacturing-based companies, which resulted in the birth of today's leading conglomerate like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and SK. Well, let me tell you before I'm getting into next page, I'm not representing Korean government, but this is my opportunity just to simply explain what the Korean government is doing as far as I understand. So, I mean, before going into the recent shift in Korean industry part, I'd like to say that it is difficult to find a simple and clear definition of a startup used all over the world. So today, let's say that the startup are newly set up small and medium-sized enterprises. Okay? From 2010s, the government started to actively foster development of IT-based companies and startups with an aim to ultimately make them the country's economic cornerstone. As a result, Korea is no longer solely conglomerated economy where a few global luminaries dominate the scene. The tech giant like Kakao and Naver and the former unicorns like Coupang, Ua Brothers and Krafton are becoming key players in Korean business world. Also, as of September, I mean, as of today, the country has about total 14 unicorn companies, including Fintech startup called Viva Republica, who is operating the service called TOS, and Mushinsa in e-commerce sector, and Yanorja, a tech-based travel and leisure platform operator. Especially, I'm informed that this week, Yanorja announced that they will use recently raised fund to expand business of its Indian subsidiary, Easy Technosis. The funding will be used in aiding Easy in setting up their R&D department and in acquiring other companies domestically and globally. So from the case, we could expect that the growth of Korean startups led to significant synergies, not just in the country, but also in the global market. Okay, so next page. Here I have listed some of the key performances of the startup ecosystem in Korea. And let me point out a few meaningful figures. The number of startups founded in 2019 is almost reaching 1 million. And its ratio to the entire enterprise is about 15%. The number is expected to be consistently increasing every year. If you see the corporation category, the 1-year survival rate of the emerging startup is 64%, and 5-year survival rate is almost half of it, is 31%. The number of startups worth a value over $1 billion is 14 as of today, as I mentioned earlier. So until recently, the number was 15. However, the gaming company, the Krafton, went public after IPO last month. So from funding side, the total investment raised from the venture capital is about $3.5 billion in 2019. But angel investment is about $500 million in the same year. So in the support organization and infrastructure part, you will see there are more than 300 accelerators in Korea, including both public and private ones, and more than 200 small and large co-working spaces. So in Korea, there are more than 450 registered patents per million people, and the investment in R&D versus GDP is 4.2%. So the proportion of overseas market entry among the startup is about 7%, which is rather low compared to the company's desire to go global. So at the same time, it means that there's still some room for growth for domestic startups.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. I was just curious, you have worked with so many startups or have seen startups succeed, fail. According to you, what are some of the success factors that a startup has? And there's no one, I know that, but what are some of those success factors that you are looking in combination?
Well, that's a bit complicated question to answer, but there's no clear, kind of order of that definition about that. But today's you'll see some kind of mixed way of support from government side and also some public sector side, which I think is a very good sign for the Korean ecosystem. and probably I'll see you. I'll tell you more details about with my next PPT prepared.
Oh, that is great. Also, like, I would like to ask the same question, if I may, or do you want to complete the slides, Mr. Cho? Or we can save it for sort of next.
Yeah, we can save it for the next.
Next phase, right? I mean,
go ahead.
we'll come back
to you,
we'll
right.
come back to you in a moment.
Yeah.
So, on that question, I would like to also reach out to Shashank and also to Colleen on understanding what they have realized as a few success factors of a startup. You both are successful now. You have a significant user base. So, Shashank, to you first, what do you think is a sort of a driving success factor? There's no one I know that. I only know what does not work, perhaps. I never know, or you only know after some time what works. So I would like to hear your thoughts on those. Like, for a startup to succeed, what are the elements that you should be looking at?
So, I there is no one success formula for any business that is there. Right? So I kind of do angel investment in a lot of startups. I'll tell you what I kind of look for, right? I think so, especially in the early stage, right? You need to have founders really driven, really passionate about the business problem, and kind of lives and breathes that problem day in, day out, right? Really understands how this kind of going to work, right? Second, the ability of the founder to tell a good story needs to be really strong. As a founder, as an entrepreneur, you're pitching to investors, employees, customers, media, everyone, day in, day out, right? So so your ability to attract people to you, right? To work for you or to take your product, to buy your product. I think that matters significantly in a way, right? And you need to enjoy doing that activity as well, right? And last time, it's more on the product and market side that whether you're working in a big enough market, or whether there's a path for the product to go towards a market which is going to be huge in future or significant in future, right? So either you are going to create a huge category, or kind of playing in a category which is already significant in size, right? So so some of these things I think are really important. Last but not the least, I think is around the resiliency of the entrepreneur and the founder himself, given there are so many ups and downs that can come up in the journey and over the years that is there, right? It's a roller coaster emotional journey. So how the person is able to manage through that, through the ups and downs, and hold a semblance of his own identity, and still be able to keep attacking the problem and coming back at it matters a lot. So these are some of the things that kind of have what I usually look for in people when I'm looking to invest, and some of the things that have worked for me as well personally in a big way.
No, great. I think there are books on why startups fail or why startups succeed. There's no one sort of short answer, but I agree to you. Stories are very important. People are very important. That sort of resilience is very important. Talking about that, Colleen, so how about you? You are a sole founder in your company. How do you find it? How do you motivate yourself, and how do you keep yourself pushing?
So actually, our company started with 3 founders. They're just 2 of my friends, and the deal was to get just a little Kickstarter money to start what's doing. Was I had to convince my family that if you can get your friends involved, you can have the support. So I convinced my friends. We went to our factory is based in China. We went to China and found it. And the reason I actually started this business was I always thought that if there is a demand for a certain product or services, I always wanted to meet that demand. I would supply the demand. And in my case, just personally, I'm a heavy mobile user. I'm on my phone pretty much 8 hours a day. And when I don't want to carry around a large bulky accessory. So I thought there's got to be a way where you can just use it when you need it and then drop it off when you don't need it. And that's where we kind of started their service with. But like I said, I do believe the core business for us is to really create customers. And for us is that we want to supply more customers who need this charging service. And from there, we're hoping that that can be kind of the foundation for future businesses. I think a lot of tech companies, they all started with one core business, but they were able to accumulate a lot of users. And from that, they're able to provide different services, different products and services, and eventually creating a platform. And the main thing is, while you're gaining these customers, you want to add them, give them a new want to help in their lives. You know, in our case, we don't want consumers to buy the batteries because they're only going to use it once and they just end up being at home. We want them to save money, be more efficient with it, and that's kind of what we're trying to. That's what our vision is trying to do for our consumers in Korea.
Great. I think what you're saying is, in short, is be useful. Like create something that is useful for people, right? For anybody.
Yes.
And a startup's valuation is based on how useful you are and to how many people you're useful, right? That is how it all goes. My next question is to Amit. You know, you are working with the first generation entrepreneur. How do you see from outside? You know, like see Bhavesh and others really push the boundaries and be successful in what they do.
Thanks for that, Pankaj. So, all my career, I have only worked with first generation entrepreneurs. Before Ola, also I was with Airtel, with Sunil Mittal. So again, as far as first generation entrepreneurs are concerned, I think Shashank captured it pretty well. I would just add a couple of more things. I would say that speed of execution is one thing which I have seen as the clear winner across my 20 years, with the first generation enterprises. Look at what in the last 1.5 years we have created at Ola Electric. Both in terms of the vision of how it was, but to get the product right, to get the manufacturing facility of the scale that we are talking of, to get the whole organization up and running in a matter of 12 months during the pandemic. I think this, from my perspective, that speed of execution, coupled with, of course, the vision that the entrepreneur has of, as Shashank was saying, breathing, literally eating, sleeping, that same thing day in and out. I think that to me is paramount, across the first generation entrepreneurs.
No, that is so wonderful answer. I think talked about story. We talked about being useful, purposeful. We talked about speed. Definitely three of the necessary elements for any startup to succeed, and that is great. Amit, you have extensive experience working in various companies. I wanted to ask you, what areas of cooperation or collaboration do you see, between different companies, like in Korea and India, for that matter? Like, do you see that there is so much of value that is still unlocked that we should be looking at going forward?
Yes, so Pankaj, I'll start with the electric one first, because I see that as a huge area going forward as potential collaboration, and I have spoken about it a few minutes back, but I would again like to reiterate the fact that as far as the EV space is concerned, as far as the sustainability and that domain is concerned, there is lots that can be actually picked up between the two sides. Again, a collaboration where India as a huge market in the coming 2 decades, beaming with so many entrepreneurs and new age companies. If there is collaboration between Korean companies and Indian entrepreneurs, or Korean entrepreneurs and Indian entrepreneurs, wherein the technologies or some of the things where Korea is strong, and the market where, as far as India is, I think there could be many areas where there could be very strong and deep collaboration. I would, for the time being, as an example, just leave that electric example as one of the key areas of collaboration.
No, that is useful. I think there is a lot of things starting with electric cars, electric vehicles, and all of that. My next question is to Mr. Cho. Mr. Cho, we would like to recontinue from where we left on your slides, and if you can share a little bit more about the ecosystem and your experience, that would be really awesome.
All right, thank you. Let me continue my presentation. In this page, I'd like to explain about the support from the government, local government, and then enterprises for the promotion of startups in Korea. As I mentioned earlier, the Korean startup has quickly evolved over the past years. Behind this remarkable growth, there have been dozens of supporting programs from the Korean government, local government, and also from the conglomerate. From the government side, there has been a significant increase in so-called startup support budget in the last decade. In 2020, the startup budget of the Ministry of SME and Startup was about $850 million US, which is 6 times bigger than one of 2010. There was only $140 million US. And also a wide variety of startup encouragement policies have been put in place. For instance, from 2018, the types of levies exemption for startup have been expanded, and higher tax deductible ratio was applied for startups. And also there are local government operated accelerators, such as Seoul Startup Hub and Pangyo Techno Valley, that provide co-working spaces, mentorship program for product development. The government is also operating support program for international startups, so you could exploit more and take advantage of the program if you have interest. Okay, let me tell you about next thing. And not only in the governmental level, but also there are active supporting programs from the private sector. This is a snapshot of major private players, including accelerators, co-working spaces, and venture capital firms. For example, Samsung announced its plan in 2017 to invest in early stage startup that focus on emerging technologies through their own accelerator as well as venture capital called Samsung Next.
Yep.
And Hyundai also offers incubating program and co-working spaces through its own incubator called Maru 180, and heavily invest in both national and international startups through their venture capital unit called Hyundai Cradle, with the regional offices 5 markets: US, China, Germany, Israel, and Korea. And plus Hanwha and Lotte and many other large Korean companies are actively investing and providing excellent opportunities to the startup worldwide. On the other side, you will see the private accelerators and venture capital such as Decamp, Primer, Spark Labs, Born Angels, etc. The accelerators are regarded as very important contributor to the record-breaking rise of startup market in Korea. For instance, Decamp is the bank foundation for young entrepreneurs. It means that a total of 19 Korean major banks gathered together to nurture startup and vitalize the startup ecosystem, with almost $840 million US worth of funding. Originally, when the Decamp was founded in 2012, there was 18 banks, but the Kakao Bank recently joined the funding network after their IPO in August.
Oh.
Luckily, my office in Unit Korea is closely collaborating with the Decamp to support expansion of this horizon for the startups. And all in all, we have witnessed that the startup supporting mechanism of the Korean government, local government, and private sector has been rapidly increased in terms of both scale and scope. I did not cover other countries' data today, but Korea is now recognized as one of the advanced nations in the global startup market, being included probably in the top 5 countries riding the phenomenal unicorn wave, together with India, of course. However, there's one thing that I need to keep in mind, or probably we need to keep in mind. In the late 1990s, Korea experienced its first kind of wave of venture boom, which is similar to dot-com bubble in the United States. At that time also, there was a full range of support from the government, but it turned out not to be so cost effective, unfortunately, and compared to the larger scale. So therefore, in this so-called the second venture boom times, with this, at the time also, there is a full range of support from the Korean government, but it turned out not to be so cost effective, unfortunately, compared to the larger scale injections.
Okay.
So therefore, in this so-called second venture boom times, with the rise of startups in Korea, we will need to well draw a plan informed by the lessons from the past to be performance-oriented startup promotion mechanism.
Absolutely, sir.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, sir. Sir, there are a few questions for you in particular. One from the audience, and before I ask you, I would request the audience to leave your questions on the chat box here or on the Q&A. If you have any, I will process them and ask the right person the question that you post here. We have around 30 minutes left for the session to conclude, so you can ask your questions, and I think we will be able to cover them. Mr. Chair, your question to you is, it is very specific. You may not have the right data right now, but the question is, what are the opportunities in agriculture tech business in Korea and in India?
Yeah, I know that in India, still the agricultural sector is consists of a huge portion of Indian economy, and agricultural sector is still very important in that country. But my experience here with the DCamp is that the Korean startup market these days, the number of startups interested in the agricultural business is relatively small when you compare with the other sectors. I mean, mainly they are IT-based startups, but still we do have startups interested in agricultural business, in particular with the Asian partners. So if there's any specific idea or plan to interact with the Korean startups or companies, we'll be happy to arrange. We'll be happy to meet them and arrange something with the Korean startups which are interested in developing opportunities in agricultural sector with India.
So to that point, what are some of the hot sectors in Korea these days? In the startup space?
I mean, in industry, hot sectors.
Yeah.
I think mainly is IT based. I think these days the Fintech is one of the hot sectors.
Okay. So Shashank, you have a new market to tap, perhaps. So you should look at in Korea, perhaps. My next question is to Colleen again. So Colleen, you are a relatively smaller company right now. What are your plans of expansion? Like, how do you plan expanding your consumer base going forward? Any plans to enter India? And if yes, how do you kind of phase it out going forward?
So currently, just in the company speaking, we have about 500 locations, 500 access points where people can rent our service. In the next coming months, we hope to expand to 3,000 locations. That's really based on our partnerships with a lot of larger Korean firms here. That's what we do. We do a B2B service. We partner up with a lot of franchises, F&B franchises that have already the access points to the stores around Korea. So it makes us easier to expand our service. I tell my CTO, he's from India. I said, why can't we do this? Why can't we enter the Indian market? And he just tells me there's some real challenges, whether it's just security wise, where people may not want to return. It's hard to manage. It's hard. Maybe the logistics system is still in development because India is a much larger country than Korea, just landmass. So it's maybe a big challenge for us to really expand that. But in the future, we do want to get into that area. So right now we're focusing in Korea.
Okay, just like Mr. Cho talked about a lot of support for startups in Korea, for international companies, I'm sure there are support systems for startups who want to come to India as well. And government has budgets allocated to support startups. You should look at that and see how you can leverage those benefits that they provide. To that question, to that point, I would like to ask Shashank and Amit if they have any thoughts, like what policies or what support structure we have in place for startups in India by the government, which perhaps Korean companies can also look at and take advantage of. So Shashank, to you first, if you know of any policies or any benefits the government provides you to make it easy for you relatively to operate the startup.
I think the regulatory regime in the country, especially from a fintech perspective, is significantly progressive in nature, right? So, and we have seen, like, with the technology that have come in, the digital public goods that the government puts out, right? So there's a very strong focus in India on building digital public infrastructure that can be leveraged by, by private companies, be it in India or abroad, to really build on top of it and, drive innovations in the market, right? So we have seen UPI, for example, being a very good infrastructure that has been set up in the last 5 years, and seeing companies like Google, Facebook, and many others taking advantage of it and effectively driving digitization in the country to the last mile that is there, right? Beyond that, then now recently there's an account aggregator framework that has been launched, which kind of allows companies to pull in people's banking data in a very contextual way with proper consent being in place, and I think that will open up a plethora of innovation that will happen on top of this open financial data that's going to come into the country in a big way that is there, right? Then beyond this, again, like, we're seeing a lot of effort towards putting together a health stack in place, which will digitize and make it accessible, make people's health records being accessible very easily in a seamless manner, and cut through any kind of red tape and any inefficiency that kind of used to exist before. So things like these, I think they are numerous, and I think India kind of lies ahead of the pack in terms of, like, the amount of digital infrastructure the government has tried to build and make it available. That is there. Even the Aadhaar program is, like, the biggest identity program in the world, and gives really good access in terms of authentication and KYC for people of the country that is there. So there are a lot of such things, that are available, and I think a lot of companies in Korea or startups which have been successful in the country can really look to leverage some of these things and build further for India as a country.
Absolutely, I think you touched upon very interesting points, and our Prime Minister Modi ji's vision for digital India, of course, includes fintech as well. And I think not only in fintech but in other spaces as well, education, health, what have you. There are sort of opportunities to tap into. And I think India is at the leading edge right now, and it's a hotbed for adopting new technologies, I think, for the world to come in and just grab the market. So also to Amit now, I would like to understand from you if you have encountered benefits or systems in India where it makes it easy for you to do business.
Yeah, so I think I'll just add to what you and Shashank mentioned. A couple of more things, if you see from a government perspective, whether it is over the last decade or so, ease of doing business implementation and policy changes, or whether it is startup programs like Startup India, I think there are a lot of benefits which clearly government looks at to provide to the new generation entrepreneurs. Whether it is something as simple as company, easing the company formation, as well as approvals which are required for any of the business related matters. I think lots have been simplified over the last decade or so, and therefore we see the ease of doing business ranking going up year on year clearly for us. And I think one more outcome of that is that just if you look at this year itself, I think India has churned out close to about 24 unicorns. So which is not a small feat in itself. So yeah, these are the outcomes, but very clearly there are these policies which have over the last decade worked well for India.
Amit, I could hear you halfway, but in the interest of time, I'll assume that the audience got the answer to your question, to the question that was asked. My next question is to Mr. Cho. Mr. Cho, you have been in India, for some time. Yeah, Mr. Cho, my question to you is, like, you have seen India a long time back. You've seen Korea. How do you compare the sort of progress that both the countries have made when it comes to startups, when it comes to the policies that support startups?
Well, I know India from my experience. I'm sorry, okay. But it's difficult to compare the two countries because the two countries' stage of economic development and background, and their character of government and style is very different. But the thing is, the Korean government support system is more centralized by the government, central government, because this is a system more centralized than India. But in case of India, in general, the systems are divided into state, right? Not only by the central federal government, but also you have a system that's supported and funded by the state government. And that level of and scope and scale, I think, will vary, depend on the different background and different situation of each and every state. So I think it's quite difficult to compare. But India has its own style and way to support the startups that I believe in their capability and their and also the leadership by the Prime Minister Modi's government.
Okay, no, that is useful. I would also kind of ask the audience if they have any questions here. There is one question for Mr. Cho again, and that is again around agri-tech. It says that which area in agriculture tech has more opportunities in improvement globally, considering the food price and purchase capacity? For example, automatic technologies of irrigation and nutrient supply, food logistics, hydroponics, etc. So do you have any thoughts on areas in particular within
that's kind of huge scale question to me. It's probably beyond my personal capacity because my organization UNIDO is focused on industrial development. Though some of agribusiness is also part of my department in headquarters. But let me study. I'll take that question and also give me some time and opportunity to study. And I come back later with the one who asked me the question with the more detailed and useful answers, okay?
Great. So in the last lap of this session, I was planning to ask to do the Q&A, but we don't have too many questions, but I have an interesting sort of angle that I want to take now. I run a business as well in Korea, and I realized that it's all about people, right? And here we're talking about cooperation between two countries, India and Korea. And we have two panelists from Korea, two panelists from India. And I've worked in both the countries. So I would like to understand from each of you, what facets or what traits Korea has that Indians should know. Likewise, what traits Indians have that Koreans should know, so that we can know each other better, and it really unlocks, or it makes it easy to onboard or to partner when we are meeting the partner on the other side easily. So let me start with Colleen. You work with both India and Korea for now. So what do you think are some of the traits that Indians have and Koreans have, which are in common perhaps, which can help set the stage for making it easy to connect with them and build trust?
Of course, in the business sense, I believe that packaging and branding is probably the biggest important thing to the Korean consumer. Yes, it can be the big brands, it can be the most easily recognizable, but it's really on having your own personal taste and making sure your target consumer demographic is accepting to it. In terms of the workforce or the opportunities from the labor side, I think both sides have the eagerness to work. They want to try different projects. Now, from my personal experience, it's a challenge for more of the Korean workforce because they're very limited to language barrier. Usually, although development, you speak one language, the coding language. However, communication still, I guess, English is a big hurdle for some of the Korean developers we have been interviewing. From the Indian side, I guess just the time zone. There is that small factor. However, for us, it's a benefit because we know that we have both sides working constantly, whether when the Korean side is off duty, at least there's at least 4 hours more for the Indian side to catch up and do the work. So for me, I see that as kind of an advantage, actually. We're constantly always working and making sure to meet our goals for the company.
Okay.
So that's what I want to say about that.
No, that's great. Shashank, what do you think that Indians, are unique or have unique sort of traits that we should be aware of, so that Koreans can connect with the country people easily?
The destination, India as a destination, a country is like really attractive from an investment perspective, right? Which in general something like all developed economies, have a good preference for, have a good, action towards, right? And I think as a market, as people, I think we are really open to working with ecosystems abroad, right? Compared to like most other developing economies, I think India is one of the most welcoming country in that sense, and always open to partnerships and seeking people to kind of working together and see like what all is possible in terms of innovation and what all we can do, and that is why you see like such a diverse diaspora abroad, and working with all kinds of people and countries and contributing to different kind of economies that are there, right? And it's no secret, like the kind of investment opportunities that exist in India, and the kind of the attractiveness it has as an investment opportunity. I think like what is also unique at this point of time is how much focus the government has in terms of developing the ecosystem, and from a digitization perspective, like all the changes that are happening, right? So it's kind of an opportune time to invest in the country and to sort of reap the benefits from it, and further the agenda of digitization, which is not only a novel goal, but also like kind of makes for a good opportunities, good business opportunities.
Okay, Mr. Cho, same question to you. You have stayed in both the countries. So what do you think are some of the common elements between Korea and India? I ask this question because it's all about the topic of the session today is cooperation, right? And cooperation is easier or is more intense when we know the other side well. So in that sense, I would like to know your thoughts on how you think, India should think of Korea, Koreans should think of India, and we get on the same page very fast.
Well, as a long-time diplomat, I'm not supposed to compare a country with we. Rather, I'd like to seek some common, element between the two countries. But from my experience, even though the culturally probably people say that Korea is quite different from India, but you see these days I've witnessed that there's a huge kind of sense of motivation, even in particular among the young generation, young people, about the innovation and economic development. Maybe well, some sector of area, India is more advanced, I would say. But in general, I would say that the Korea is more advanced than India, and we can probably compare and study further. So, but the point is, we have young generations who are in both countries who are full of energy and motivation. So, how to bridge them between them is our mission, and probably not impossible. Mission is possible. So this is what I think the Indian embassy in Korea, the Korean embassy in India, and both government and international organizations like us are supposed to do for the future of two countries.
Absolutely. I think, if I may add a few points here, based on my experience working in Korea and in India, I think we both fall into the Asian culture. And for us, it's about families first. It's about, our country first. So we have that sort of commonality, and, we connect at that level. And of course, both the countries, we work very hard. We are always hungry to push more, to kind of get a better result all the time. So that is also very common. So I think we connect to begin with right there, right? And again, the time zone is not so sort of far away. When the 3.5 hours of difference, it makes it easy. And we can really connect on that side as well. And there is so much of opportunity. For example, I think Korea provides the hardware expertise, and India provides software expertise. If we can combine the two, we can really make amazing wonders possible. And for us, in our company also, we have the expertise. We use the hardware expertise of Korea and software of India and also of Korea, by the way. And the technological expertise of Korea and the market side of India is again a good combination to have. So I think looking at those points, I think, there is so much to tap into, so much to look at, and we should all, try to see how we can explore opportunities here in this space. Amit, my question to you now is, you have worked in big companies as well, right? How do you kind of compare the culture in a big company in India versus a small company?
Yeah, I would say that it's, if you look at the startup space or the fast growing companies in India, I think, as you mentioned, in India equally is a place where, hard work comes fairly naturally to most of the population. So I would say that I would divide it more between companies who are, fast growing, ambitious, this thing where clearly the culture is on speed, execution, kind of. And then there are companies where obviously it is more, process driven, which takes kind of longer. But I mean, both the spaces are important as far as, the overall growth is concerned. So I wouldn't distinguish it too much between a smaller company and larger, but more in terms of companies which are fast growing versus some of the ones which take it in a stepwise manner.
Great. And one more question, follow-on question, which is a different one. Like, Ola is trying to expand its offerings to different domains. Do you also look at fintech as a space to enter into?
We are already in fintech space, as I mentioned, and so we are there in buy now, pay later as one of the components.
Okay.
Ola Money Postpaid, as well as insurance distribution. But more importantly, as the auto retail part, whether through the new vehicle or used vehicle segment is increasing, that auto financing as well as auto insurance is going to be a big part of our overall play. Not all of this would be on our balance sheet. This would, predominantly will be on other balance sheets, but we will have our own balance sheets on these as well. And
the reason I asked this question was, like, how much of this do you think is kind of build it yourself or buy it and plug it? So do you plan to build it all yourself or kind of buy technologies from outside and plug it in? And that is when perhaps Korean technologies could be useful to you. And the same question I want to also ask to Shashank after you are done on how much of the technology space that you look at is going to be inbuilt in-house and how much of that is going to be acquired through sort of acquisitions or just licensing technologies from other companies.
Yeah, so in our case, we are a technology company. So we build everything, in fact, in-house.
Okay.
As far as the fintech business is concerned.
Okay, great. Shashank, what about you?
I think we use a lot of technologies from different vendors, across the world that is there, right? So while we definitely focus on building the core infra and core financial technology in-house, the financial infrastructure that we are trying to build for the country, trying to see like how really like with a very high quality bar and a high precision and efficiency, like that's the aim of all the software that we build, right? But the base of it and the places we host, the kind of technologies that we leverage, the different different aspects around building software and the hardware pieces that can come, is pretty much comes from all over the world. And we have collaboration with various companies, including the likes of Samsung and many others, where we leverage the technology expertise to build on our platform.
Great. We are nearing towards the end of the session. I would like to use the rest of the time to have each speaker, each panelist, give us some concluding remarks. And towards the end, I'll just wrap it up, put it all together, and we'll close it. So how about we start with Mr. Cho first to give your sort of perspective, very briefly, final thoughts that you want to leave the room with.
Let me finish the last part of actually my prepared presentation, which is about my office's role in promoting the Korean startup business very briefly. Okay. Yes, so the UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, has a mission to promote inclusive and sustainable industrial development. So this mandate is fully recognized in the SDG Goal 9. So in this context, my office is focusing on the support for the Korean startups global business. However, it is true that this pandemic situation is still a big obstacle to our regular program, such as inviting people from partner countries and sending Korean delegations to target countries. So although we are still doing most of our programs virtually, we'll take all possible steps to intensify our startup promotion activities. For instance, you will see the photos with the ambassador and myself. This is I think evidence of our close interaction in collaboration with the embassies and diplomatic corps in Korea under these circumstances. Also, next page, please. And also as a close partner of the Decamp, the largest incubator in Korea. So we are doing our business like setting up a global connecting lounge where we invite people and startups and other interested people who are interested in bridging and matching the business opportunities with the counterpart. So I think that all in all, as of today, the ecosystem in Korea and also supporting mechanism from government and local government is very high. So if there's any business partners who would like to take this opportunity, please do so. And in that context, my office is always open. We'll be happy to do our part. And I think we'll do something better. So I believe that startups will make a difference and probably will change the world in the long run.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cho. I would request Sashank to be the next person to lead the final thoughts on the table.
I think entrepreneurship is very noble passion and a very noble passion and job, and there's a lot of opportunities that exist in the world and problems that can be solved that is there, right? For people listening on the call and for the honorable panelists, we should do all we can from a policy perspective and infrastructure perspective and the government support perspective to keep furthering it and making ease of doing business a priority and enabling entrepreneurs to kind of and removing roadblocks in the path, right? You're seeing how we can get more people towards entrepreneurship and leverage the ecosystem's expertise and the country's expertise to push on that path, right? And I'm really keen to see I think how we can partner and further partnerships with Korean companies and Korean fintech ecosystem and see what all we can bring on the table, because I think there's a lot of unexplored opportunities that kind of exist there where we haven't really paid a lot of attention to, and I kind of see that there's something really good that can come out of it in future.
Thanks, Sashank. Colleen, what about you? What are your final thoughts that you want to leave here?
Great opportunity for me personally, but also from both sides to really explore how both parties, both Korean startups, Indian startups, or just businesses can really move together and work together and actually share ideas and opportunities. Just looking, I think most of the panelists were mainly from India. It'd be nice to actually see more Korean startups and share their own services and products. Maybe that's something that's not too familiar in India, and it goes both ways. So I think the more you have these panels, it's definitely going to help with promoting both labor forces.
Awesome. Thanks, Colleen. Amit, on to you now.
Thanks for organizing this, because I think these kind of panels and discussions kind of provide the corridor through which the partnership and the collaboration can really improve. And there is a lot of commonality between the way Korea and India trade and have partnerships. So I would think that given the way we both are looking at the coming decade or 2 decades, very clearly there are going to be many opportunities for collaboration, and looking forward to be part of partnerships on the businesses that we are in.
Thank you so much for those wonderful words, Amit. You're so right. It's all about whom we know and what we know and how we connect, how we process things, and how fast we move. Getting so many wonderful people on this one platform it's not an easy job. And I thank the Embassy of India in South Korea to arrange this session. And we should organize more of such sessions. But today was, I think, very insightful in that we were able to learn about perspectives on both sides of the table. How is Korea organized? What ecosystem Korea provides? What ecosystem India has? What potential India provides? We have entrepreneurs from India, from Korea. I mean, the same hunger is there, right? We speak different languages, perhaps, but we have the same hunger, the desire to make a difference. We have support systems, like DCAMP and UNIDO. That is also kind of supporting the startups in Korea and looking at international companies to come to Korea and make a difference. We have companies like Ola, which is, pushing boundaries and reaching out to technologies outside country to see what can be done to make things possible faster. And I think it's all about, at the end, it's all about how much we know and how much we are willing to kind of put in. And sessions like today really set the stage. And as they say, well begun is half done. I think we are half done today with having started this session and this dialogue. And I hope that we are able to continue this dialogue and talk, beyond this session and understand what more India has to provide, what more Korea has to provide. How can we leverage the talent on both the sides? So I'm looking forward to participating in more of such sessions going forward. And to the audience as well, thanks for being such a supportive audience. I wish we had more questions, but I can understand we all are busy and we have so many priorities to look at. But thanks for joining us, and we hope the embassy organizes more of such events and allows us to kind of interact and share our perspectives. On that note, I would like to pause here and offer the stage back to Sonu ma'am. Ma'am, off to you. Thank you so much, and thanks panelists for doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Ambassador ma'am, again for providing this opportunity, and I look forward to more of the sessions going forward. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj, for moderating the session so well. And on behalf of Embassy of India, Seoul, I would like to formally thank all the panelists for sharing their insights and their perspectives. And I'm sure in future we will see many more collaborations coming up. Formally, I would like to thank Mr. Amir Anchal, Mr. Shashank Kumar, Mr. Hyundong Cho, Mr. Colleen Chang, individually for sharing, being a part of this session and sharing your perspectives. And also, once again, to Mr. Pankaj Agarwal for moderating the session. And finally, to all the live participants for your interventions and being with us today on the 6th day of this very, very important workshop that we are having. Hope to see you all once again on Monday, that is September 13th, on a very different topic, which is focusing on experiences in United Nations peacekeeping operations and plausible areas of convergences between India and Republic of Korea. And in this session, we have two very important speakers from India and Republic of Korea. From India, we have Major General Dr. A.K. Bardalai joining us from New Delhi. And from Korea, we have Professor Yoon Kap Lim joining us from KNDU. And the session would be moderated by Major General P.K. Goswami, who is the Deputy Director at USI New Delhi. So hope to see you all once again on Monday at the same time. Thank you all. Thank you. Kamsahamnida.